to Eye on Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 86, otherwise known as season 5, episode 8. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing fine. Excited to get the gang back together.
Yeah, we're recording a little late in the game here, so we haven't seen each other in a while, but all's good because we're here now. Also with us yet again is your other host, John Correia. How you doing, Correia?
It's starting to feel like a human again. Spent 2 weeks in Vegas working on American Ninja Warrior again. So, I feel like any extended period of living out of a hotel kind of makes you feel inhuman. But in a place like Vegas, it's you lose your days very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, you do.
Sense of time. And I'm not even a gambler or a partier or, any of that stuff. So it still affects you.
It's just the city.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. What have you guys been doing?
I finally saw the Northman.
Oh, sweet. What'd you think?
Well, to quote Metalocalypse, that was brutal.
It's totally brutal.
Yeah, that movie ruled. It was just, I don't know exactly how to put it. It's just Robert Eggers just actually brought an epic to life. And it was funny too, because I didn't even realize that it was based off of Hamlet, or the original Viking story that was the basis for Hamlet until I was watching. It's like Prince Hamlet. And it's like, oh,
Hamlet.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty loosely based on it.
Right.
But yeah, it is based on it. Yeah.
But no, yeah, that was amazing. Just the choreography on those fights and some of those sequences. One of my favorites was the one with the undead Viking. That was badass.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like I was ready for it because Robert Eggers actually did some guest programming at the Cinematheque, and so he played Conan the Barbarian, the original Schwarzenegger one, which I'd never seen before. So seeing that, then this, just I feel like I'm in sync with it.
Conan the Barbarian. I recently watched that for the first time because I've only seen clips or seen it on TV. That's one of those movies that it kind of feels like it had no right to be as good as it was, the villain was well thought out and had the best lines and monologues that
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones was just so enigmatic and so just stole your attention. Couldn't take my eyes off of him the whole time.
The big thing that I saw this week was Men, the new Alex Garland movie. Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation.
How was it?
It's pretty good. It's an Alex Garland movie, so it's more abject horror than his other ones. It's less sci-fi, although the third act goes complete Alex Garland, which is another way of saying it goes complete David Cronenberg Jr. But it's basically about a woman played by Jessie Buckley, who is terrific, who she goes to this country manor that she rents because her husband has just died and she wants to heal. And this country manor is really isolated. It's located in a forest, which, that sets you up for what's going to go on. She starts seeing this weird dude in the forest who kind of starts stalking her. And it goes way deeper than that. The whole town is kind of crazy. So it kind of goes from home invasion to folk horror, but it's crazy. It's just beautifully creepy. And it's one of those movies where you're the whole time you're kind of confused and you're like, is this gonna all come together? And it comes together about as well as Annihilation, I should say. It kind of left me, the end kind of left me feeling the same as Annihilation, where I'm kind of going, I'm still not sure if I know what the fuck just happened, but it was pretty. There's one thing that happened at the tail end that maybe once you guys see it, we'll do a mini-sode, because it's not really a spoiler, because I don't feel like it ties into the rest of the movie unless I miss something. That's the kind of movie it is, where it's I feel like I need to see it again because I may have missed stuff in it that might explain the ending better, which I guess could be said about Annihilation as well. But it's definitely worth seeing. It's from a technical standpoint, it's a masterpiece. It's just The ending just feels a little like he's like, okay, now I'm just going to throw a bunch of goo in here, So
I love that. Yeah.
You gotta have the goo.
Yeah. So it's good though. I mean, I did enjoy it, and it right now it's somewhere in my top 10. I don't think it's as high as the Northman or X. It might be number 3. It might be number 3 in my top 10. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but yeah.
Second viewing, Mike, because that's me with some films that require like Annihilation. Like I really liked it the first time, but absolutely loved it the second time once I was able to like get with the pace.
Yeah, I think Alex Garland makes movies that you have to see, because Ex Machina is the same way. I think he makes movies that you have to watch a couple times to fully appreciate. So maybe that's what this is.
Yeah, they're made to be analyzed.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the new Firestarter?
No, I didn't.
Oh, first of all, I just want to shout out to John Carpenter and co, because they presented a very excellent score, which is hard to follow up because the original was Tangerine Dream. So congrats on that. I think it was John Squires that compared it to like early 2000s, 90s straight to video quality. And I don't disagree with him. It felt very of that 90s straight to video made for TV Stephen King adaptation kind of. But that kind of worked for me a little bit. I don't know if it's a nostalgia for those days in the video store, just collecting every VHS and DVD of a King adaptation I could get my hands on. But I kind of dug that a little bit. I will admit it is a little flat and was kind of hoping for more. Zac Efron I thought was very great in it. Kurtwood Smith was in it for like 2 seconds, but like was obviously fantastic. And the lead girl was really good, but overall it just kind of felt a little flat.
That's early 2000s straight to video. I mean, honestly,
yeah. I wanted more, but I wasn't upset with it. You know what I mean? Like, I had fun. There's a few good moments, but I think just overall it was just a bit underwhelmed. Yeah. I just wanted a little bit more. But hey, a King always happy to watch the King adaptations, even when you get it's definitely not Langoliers level of cheese. I got it. So
yeah. As for me, there were not one but 2 horror movie marathons last weekend.
Jeez, how are you alive?
Well, here's what it was. American Cinematheque Era Theater was doing what they called the Shadow Noir LA Horror Marathon. So it was all horror movies set and shot in Los Angeles. I believe it was They Live, Society, Slumber Party Massacre, Angel, Chopping Mall, and Night of the Comet. And I wasn't there for the whole thing. I was mostly working that day, so I was there for like the first half. And it was hilarious to hear a lot of people who'd never seen it before's reactions to Society and the shunting scene.
God,
a lot of oohs and uhs back on the body horror. Yeah, a lot of visceral reactions on that one. And then I went to the New Beverly afterward because they were doing a mystery 90s marathon, which, got to give credit where credit is due. They went like deep cut on that one, like very off the wall and like unheard of 90s movies. Like they did Brett Leonard's Hideaway starring Jeff Goldblum and Alfred Molina, and Warlock 2 The Armageddon from Waxworks Anthony Hickox, then Robin Flender's The Unborn, and then they ended it with perhaps the most 90s movie of all, Disturbing Behavior.
Yes.
Classic.
Yeah, no, the audience collectively lost its shit when Flagpole Sitta started playing during the movie.
Was it one of those festivals where you don't know what's playing until it starts?
Exactly.
Okay, so they knew Disturbing Behavior was, or they didn't know Disturbing Behavior was coming.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So wait, let me get this straight. So you went to, was this all on the same day? So you went to the LA marathon, then you worked a shift, and then went to the New Bev.
Yes.
Wow. So was that like a 24-hour day for you?
More like 16 hours.
Man,
I had the drive. Yeah, what can I say? I'm dedicated.
You can't say that the boys at iHorror don't have endurance.
Another thing I saw was this little micro budget movie called Nightcaller. Have you guys heard about this?
I think I've heard of it.
I think it would be your shit, Jacob. It's very 70s giallo. It's about a woman who's even the plot sounds like a 70s giallo. It's about a woman who she's like a telephone psychic, and she starts getting calls from a killer, and he's basically confessing to these crimes before he does them, and she has a psychic link to him, so she can see him kill as he's doing it. And it's story wise, I feel like it's a little lacking and a little derivative, but from an aesthetic standpoint, they nail that 70s slasher giallo thing, and Kelly Maroney, speaking of Night of the Comet, she plays the woman's mom in flashbacks, and Steve Railsback plays the killer. The killer is actually known from the beginning, so it's not really a mystery. It's more of a mystery of how it's going to play out than it is. But it's called Nightcaller. It's a brand new. I think it went straight to VOD. So I think it's right up your alley, Jacob. I think you'd be into it.
Also, funny enough, Steve Railsback was the bad guy in Disturbing Behavior.
Yeah,
he's connecting that together.
Hasn't he played both Charles Manson in Helter Skelter and Ed Gein in the Ed Gein movie as well?
I don't remember.
I think he has. So,
but either way, that movie does sound like it's up my alley.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's definitely something that you'd be into. So you should keep an eye out for it.
Definitely.
Speaking of Charles Manson and Ed Gein, look at this beautifully orchestrated segue. While I was in Vegas, I had to do something spooky before I left. So I went to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. Have you guys heard of this place?
I have not. No.
Scott Baggins is one of the guys from Ghost Hunters and does a lot of those like ghost hunting programs on Discovery and that. And so he bought this haunted house, and that used to have like bad satanic rituals in there. I like to preface the bad kind, not the good kind. And then was a law office for a while because, it had to get more evil. And then he bought it, and he's filled it with bad energy items, haunted items. And, it's fine. There's a lot of how do I put it best? There's a lot of celebrity death items in there. So there's stuff where it's like, this chair was in the room that Michael Jackson died in, or this, they had, I don't know if you guys ever watched the program Cat House on HBO, but they had the deathbed for Nevada's biggest brothel owner, who also became an assemblyman post-mortem because, Vegas. That was weird because they had his bed, and then the tour guide used a UV light to show the stains because, it's a bed from a whorehouse. And I think that should summarise the experience, because they had a lot of like real items that were from stuff like, they had the Daybuck box, the infamous one. They had a piece from James Dean's car, that he died in. And there was a lot of items that were legit and cool that, required a lot of respect, but they were surrounded by a hokey haunted house setting. They had Ed Gein's cauldron that he supposedly would gut and drain his victims into, and it was in this room in this house that was made to look like a barn, and they had like a mannequin hanging from the ceiling and stuff, and they had like a basement where the supposedly really bad satanic rituals happened, and like children were murdered down there. But like, it's like a very tight corridor down there, and there's a pentagram painted on the ground, and they had one of those like electro boxes going. So it was like very creepy and then like spooky, because you're like, oh wow, the really bad satanic rituals really happen here. And then you just tap on the wall and you realize that it's like, a construct wall, and like they repurposed the basement to be spooky. So it was very hit or miss for me. But they did have cool stuff. Like they had Bela Lugosi's haunted mirror there, which was really cool. They had pieces from the ship that Natalie Wood, disappeared off of. And Jay, you'll be happy. They had the rocking chair from one of Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases there. The one where I think it was like haunting in Connecticut, the child possession. And if you pay extra, you got to get close and look at the rocking chair. And that was the only VIP thing that I skipped on because we all know my opinions on Ed and Lorraine Warren. But yeah, it was fun. It was very touristy, and if you pay, for the VIP thing, you get to experience a few extra things, go through a little tunnel. You get to go into a room where there's a lot of creepy dolls. And one of them is, bad juju and all that fun stuff.
Only one of them. And they don't tell you which one.
No, they do tell you which one. And it's also very obvious which one. It was like the first room and it did legitimately creep me the hell out. But they also, I think the room that I thought was the best presented was the Jack Kevorkian room because they had the actual van that he performed a lot of the assisted suicides in. They had the van there. And that one, I never want to say I enjoy these things, but that one I thought they put the most respect in. It wasn't, haunted housey. It was just like a lot of facts about the people who made that decision. And I thought that was very well done. But yeah, I mean, and if you do the VIP thing, you get a free shirt. So, it's very Vegas-y. So yeah.
There used to be somewhere here in San Diego. It might even still be there somewhere, or maybe it might have moved to LA. It was called the Museum of Death.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's still around.
Yeah, that's in Hollywood.
Okay. Yeah. It used to be down here in San Diego. And I went to it. I mean, this is at least 20 years ago, probably 25. And they had cool stuff like they had one of John Wayne Gacy's paintings. Mm-hmm. And the thing that most affected me of what they had was they had a prison outfit that I don't know which prisoner it was. They had his name there, but it wasn't a household name. But it was what he was wearing when he was executed in the electric chair. And you could see like burn marks on it, and you could see where they cut it to attach the electrodes and stuff. It was pretty damn creepy. And then there was like exploitative stuff. Like they had pictures, of like crime scenes, and one room you go in and they're playing not Faces of Death, one of the real ones, like Traces of Death, or one of the ones that's actually real, not reenactments. They're playing that video as you walk around the room. So some of it was exploitative, but some of it was actually kind of cool. It sounds like the same kind of thing where like, you have to hunt for the nuggets of cool within all the cheese,
And that's the thing too, is that they did have a room in the Haunted Museum where it was built like a jail, and they had artifacts from John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy. And it was all like legit fact stuff, like Ted Bundy's murder kit and stuff. And that room felt like Museum of Death, because I went there 6 years ago. That was actually one of the early dates I went on with our producer, Lindsay Gant. And she brought her little sister out with us. And I mean, to compare the two, I preferred the Museum of Death because it was more artifact based and they had a lot of facts with it. And I thought, and it's more true crimey than it is trying to be haunted house, definitely towards the end of that experience, it felt more exploity. But then again, they had a whole room dedicated to Gigi Allen. So, I dug that. But I do vividly remember in Museum of Death, there's a hallway where it was just a bunch of photographs of this couple that like murdered her husband, and they were naked and covered in blood, and you saw like them decapitate the head and stuff, and it was very real and very shocking. And
they cut off his penis and stuck it in his mouth.
Yeah. Oh, very, very graphic stuff.
It sounds like the same people who run it, but they might have gotten more stuff for LA because there was no Gigi Allen room when I saw it. But that I remember that photo exhibit, the series of pictures of that couple. And it was there was a hallway with the crime photos like you're talking about, but it was the staircase down because this whole thing was in a basement kind of the building. So they were on the walls of the staircase that after they take your ticket, you go down this staircase to get to the exhibits.
Oh, see, when in LA, they had it in the hallway leading to the exit if you needed to exit early.
Oh, if you exit early.
Yeah. And I just remember going down it and I was like, oh God, this is so fucking graphic. And I turn around and I see Lindsay and her little sister who was just like just barely 18, and they started going down the hallway. I was like, no, we don't go down here. But
those ones were a bit that was like rotten.com crap. Yeah.
So if you guys like true crime and like spooky stuff and you want to possibly be cursed by the Dybbuk box, Haunted Museum and Museum of Death, they're fun destinations in your favorite tourist areas of LA and Vegas.
Let's see. I was at the New Beverly earlier this week. They were playing a double feature of rare Hong Kong horror movies.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was, I hadn't even really heard of these, but okay. So the first one was this anthology or duology movie called The Day That Doesn't Exist, which turns out is February 30th.
That makes sense because there's only 28 days in February.
29 in a leap year.
Oh shit, you're right.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's like the first segment's kind of a monkey's paw situation where like a bride-to-be's husband dies in a car accident and she wishes he was back alive and he comes back as a ghoul. And then the second one is about this deadbeat dad who also gets into a car accident, but he wakes up in the body of this rich socialite with his beautiful wife. So he's trying to figure out whether he wants to go back to his old life, but it turns out the person whose body he's in possession of has all kinds of secrets. So it was a very Tales from the Crypt type of movie, like especially in that Hong Kong horror type of way where there's a lot of mix of slapstick with the horror. Because like there's this bumbling cop character named Charles Chan, who the running gag is he gets his arms broken for both movies. And so it was pretty fun. Although the second movie was really wild. It was called Evil Cat. And it's basically a wuxia version of Fallen because it's about like this construction site accidentally popping open this container that contained an evil cat demon that starts going around possessing people and also has its own like martial arts style. And this priest and this car driver have to team up to try and track down who's possessed by the evil cat and exorcise it with holy arrows. And that one was much more violent and dramatic and had some pretty great fight choreography between the evil cat, who looked kind of like a cat's cat when fully transformed, and lots of people getting impaled with like claws to the gut. I really like Hong Kong horror movies just because you have no idea how off the wall it's going to get.
Those all sound like amazing things that I need to watch almost immediately.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're pretty hard to track down or rare, because that's the unfortunate thing. Just so many Hong Kong horror movies never really made it officially stateside.
Yeah,
but if you can find it, I'd recommend it, especially again, Evil Cat.
I will definitely try to track these down if I can. Another thing that I did was I listened to the audiobook of Cassandra Peterson's memoirs, Cruelly Yours. Cassandra Peterson, of course, of Elvira fame.
Yeah, and did she do the reading?
She did do the reading, and I cannot recommend it enough. First of all, it's a great read. I have a physical copy as well, but I got a quarter of the way through it, and it's a long drive to Vegas and back from LA. So hearing it from Cassandra's own words, and it's just so good because she wrote it with a bit of sass too on occasion, and so it really comes through in there. And man, Cassandra Peterson really was a real life Forrest Gump. Like, she just met famous people all throughout her life, and she details not only how she got the Elvira role, but like the first 20 or so chapters have nothing to do with Elvira. It's just her life before it, because she led such a cool life. She was a go-go dancer, Vegas showgirl when she was 17, for a year. She met Elvis, Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, just to name a few, before she was even like 20. like just all around coolest person ever. She lived in a haunted mansion, not on purpose either. She just loved the place. And it's just so cool. All her stories, and she remembers them so vividly as well. I can't recommend the audiobook enough. I obviously go out and buy a copy, but if you want to listen to the audiobook, don't forget there's the app Libby. We're not sponsored by them, but I fully support, public libraries, and you can listen to it through there by connecting it to your library card. So yeah, check it out.
We're going to segue now into our topic by discussing something that at least Correia and I have watched on HBOMax, The Baby.
Yes. It's my new favorite show.
It is crazy. This is like, honestly, you'll be hooked within the first scene if you start watching The Baby. One thing that, and I always say this is the one thing that deserves to be spoiled in any movie or TV show. This baby kills a dog. Okay. So
wow.
Know that. Yeah. Well, I mean, this baby kills a lot of things, but one of them is a dog. So if you're sensitive to animal, when we were watching it, when the dog scene is happening, my wife's like, if it kills this dog, I'm out. I'm done. And sure enough, you're like, oh, really? So anyway, if you're sensitive to that, this might not be for you, but this is the most crazy. It's a TV show. It's like a series, and the episodes are a half an hour long, and there's 4 of them out at the time of this recording. So it's a pretty quick watch.
And it's absolutely, it's a horror comedy. So the premise of it is there's this woman, this British woman who, her friends are either have babies or are pregnant. And she takes some time to go kind of clear her head about that because she's very staunch, does not want a kid, And while she's, clearing her mind in this cabin, this woman, it's like at the bottom of a cliff. This woman is running from the cops with a duffel bag. She opens up, they make her open up the duffel bag, and there's a baby in it. And then the woman jumps off the cliff and goes splat next to the main character who's down below smoking a cigarette. It is then promptly followed by the baby crawling off the cliff and falling into the main character's arms. And
yeah, she happens to look up. She looks up to see, where did this woman come from? And the baby just lands in her arms, And
essentially this baby is like a cursed object, basically. Like it like people just keep dying around it. It's very weird. Like people almost instantly are just like, oh yeah, that's your baby. She's like, this is not my baby. I did not just suddenly have a baby. And it's the comedy in it is just on point. The creepy factor is absolute. And Lindsay pointed this out very early on. The baby stares. Like you know how babies just stare at things. It makes sense. They don't know what the fuck's going on. The show uses it to its advantage, and those baby stares, which are already inherently creepy, are just on point. The set of baby, like I think it's twin babies that they have. Amazing performance out of those babies, and they just stare.
But the thing is, the stairs are not like, Damien from the Omen stares. They're like those wide-eyed baby stares that babies always do. But in the context of what's going on in the show, it's totally creepy. And it's funny because like this woman who has this baby, she tries to ditch it, but like she'll like try to ditch it somewhere, and then her car won't start until she goes back and gets the baby, and then her car will start. I mean, there's like weird stuff like that. She can't get away from this baby.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell that the baby's like influencing people around it, and it's influencing her, because there's other parts where she's like trying to, you get to a point where she's like trying to kill this baby, and she can't, because like, it influences her instincts and whatnot. And the commentary there of unwanted pregnancy is just absolutely done so well. It's not subtle. It's not a subtle show. I mean, we're talking about a killer baby show, but it's not on the unsubtlety of like Rubber, where with the killer tire. But like it's definitely, it's not subtle, but like it's just played out so well. And
it's about as subtle as Don't Look Up. that Netflix show that about climate change.
I'd say it's a bit more subtle, but like, yeah, no, it's not far off. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. It's just so funny. It's so atmospheric. The score and soundtrack
the music is incredible because the music is like you think it's diegetic sound, like when the woman is running from the cops, and and then all of a sudden you realize that's the rhythm track to the score, because then they'll build over it. And that happens so many more times. Like you'll hear like dripping water or clanging pipes, and then you'll realize you're like, oh shit, that's part of the score. Score is incredible.
Yeah, it's very there's a lot of throat singing in it, a lot of throat singing and chanting. And it really lends into, because the deeper you get into the series, you start to get into like the history behind the baby. Like this is like, obviously she's not the first one, because you see the woman at the very top of the show, but like, how long has this been going on? Who else has this baby? Who else has this baby like affected and whatnot? And yeah, that fourth episode was absolutely bonkers. And I can't wait, man. Like it was one of those ones where like, a few episodes had come out, so I did a little bit of a binge, and now I'm all caught up, and I'm kind of pissed off that I have no more episodes to watch until the new one comes out.
I kind of am too. I was just thinking, this is like must see TV. It's like I can't wait for the next episode, but I'm kind of pissed that I didn't wait for the end either, because it's a pretty quick binge too. And when we were done with the 4 episodes, I'm like, that's it. There aren't any more.
I know. I need more the baby.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing how they get, revolve an entire series around a killer baby. Because, you see, there are a lot of movies about killer babies, but a TV show, I think that's the first.
And you bring up a lot of movies about killer babies, which we are the king of segues today.
We are segueing so hard today.
Do you want to introduce the topic, Correia? Because nothing is better than 3 males talking about pregnancy and babies, but we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I am. Well, this week's topic is definitely inspired by recent news, and of course, HBOMax is the baby. We wanted to talk about pregnancy horror, and dive a little bit into killer babies and whatnot. But as Jacob said, there's a lot of them out there, and that's because there's a lot of scary shit that can happen throughout the entire real life experience of it. And one of the things about horror that's so great and beautiful is that there's the idea of processing horrific things or things that scare us. That's not only palatable, but there's a bit of catharsis with it, and in addressing these issues. And so we just wanted to highlight some films that cover these topics very well. And to start off, I mean, there's so few directors that can handle a topic that has to do so much with body than David Cronenberg. And I think 2 of his films embody the fears that can come with pregnancy and just fear on either side of this of the equation with that, than The Brood and The Fly. The Fly, it's more so just that one scene of Gina Davis giving birth to the fly human hybrid, and that fear of giving birth to something abnormal or the pregnancy going wrong. But The Brood, I mean, those babies weren't conceived in the most conventional sense. They were essentially like products of her rage, and God, those things were so fucking creepy, man.
Yeah, that was like the little weird rubber masks.
It's so funny for me because I saw The Brood when I was probably way too young to see The Brood, when I was, probably like 8 or, 9. And I remember at the time, it was just this scary ass horror movie. Yeah. But then when you watch it later in life, you realize all the subtleties and all the, basically, for lack of a better word, commentary that's going on. And it almost becomes scarier. But like, there are a lot of movies like that where I'll look back on that I saw that I just thought was, you pick up on the nuances as an adult. But when you watch them as a kid, you're like, oh, this, like the Friday the 13th movies, you don't realize that he's killing the people who are having sex until it's pointed out to you later on. But like if you're like 10 watching these movies, you're like, oh yeah, he's just killing kids.
Right. Well, and it's the same with the Brood. I mean, like the Brood themselves are manifestations of the rage she feels towards the abuse that she experienced as a child. And so it really speaks to survivors and PTSD and, to put it lightly, the baggage that we carry from these experiences and how it can affect you. I mean, for the most part, we're not going to manifest that into, demonic babies that come out of us. But, that feeling is there that if you carry this with you, that it can grow and manifest into something that is uncontrollable. It preys on a lot of fears on both sides, not only dealing with these, Brood, but the one that creates them. What are some of the films that you guys?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I was going to save it mainly the main discussion for the topic. I saw that Rodman Flender movie from the 90s, The Unborn. Well, if you haven't seen it, it's basically about this couple that want to conceive a baby, and they've been having a lot of trouble, so they decide to have go through an experimental fertilization procedure done. So, that goes in these types of movies. So, it doesn't go quite as planned. It's a lot to do with kind of the fears of genetic manipulation and just, kind of like, where the nature between like science and pregnancy and, where that can go. Because, like some of the women that get impregnated with this technique start to go crazy and kill people, and there's a lot of body horror, and when one of these super babies is actually born, it just starts going around killing people. So I get a lot of there are definitely some of these movies which kind of tap into the fear of, I guess, kind of the combination of the societal pressures to have a baby and just kind of what lengths couples would go to conceive.
Have you guys seen the movie Proxy?
No.
It's from a few years back. It's about it actually has one of the most effective opening scenes that I can remember ever seeing. But it's about a woman who she's leaving her OBGYN's office, and she is not really mugged. She's attacked in the street, just like, brutally attacked, and she loses her baby. And then she goes to a support group to kind of get over it. And she meets another woman who has a kid, is pretending not to have a kid. It's really, it's kind of like you're saying, it's kind of a weird statement on, people who want to have kids and people who don't want to have kids, but I just remember the opening scene when I was watching it. It was one of those holy shit moments. You're like, oh my God, really? Wow.
Damn. Gonna have to add that one to the list. What about Prevenge? I know we've discussed it a few times on the show, but that's another just brilliant horror comedy out there. I think it's still on Shudder at this time. And it's a British comedy slasher about this woman who, and it's written and directed by Alice Lowe, who was actually pregnant at the time. And, as her pregnancy goes on, she starts to hear the voice of her unborn child telling her to kill. And we have that beautiful line of dialogue where the husband's going, "You're grieving. I'm not grieving. I'm gestating fucking rage."
It reminds me of a scene in The Office where Pam is pregnant and she's getting sick from smells. And Dwight says, "A tiny fetus is calling the shots. That's so badass."
It kind of ties into what we were talking about with the Brood.
Yeah. And that fear of like what's manifesting in you, especially, and there's two sides of that, like there's the movies where it's someone that wants it and they're afraid that something, evil's coming out. So there's, Prevenge or Rosemary's Baby, where
I was just about to say that's Rosemary's Baby as well.
Yeah. Where it's something that they wanted, but like, Rosemary's Baby definitely feeds upon like, not only morning sickness and a lot of the other symptoms that come out of it. But the extreme of it, she's losing weight while she's pregnant. It's like sucking the life force out of her. And then, of course, you get to the end and you find out, it's the son of Satan and whatnot that the neighbors put in her. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to draw on with it. I'm surprised Jay hasn't brought up his favorite movie yet.
Boogie Nights.
What? I don't.
There's a pregnancy in Boogie Nights, but I don't think it's a plot point.
Well, I was gonna say A Quiet Place, because
A
Quiet Place isn't entirely about the horrors of pregnancy, but that's the birth scene. Alone, just trying to give birth in a post-apoc in a unfriendly environment for one to give birth.
That's one of the things I don't get about A Quiet Place, because when she's pregnant, basically to term, it's like 400 and something days, which means they conceived that child after this stuff was all going down. It's like, first of all, how do you do that quietly? And second, why would you do that? Why would you bring a child into that knowing selfishly that this kid is going to cry and scream and possibly jeopardize you and your family's life? That's the one thing I don't understand about A Quiet Place, is why they even got pregnant.
Well, two things. First of all, you have sex quietly.
Maybe you do. Oh,
I mean, hey man, hey, let's not get into each other's sex noises here. But no, I mean, you have to have those moments with your partner. I mean, like, you got to have that connection every now and then. The kid's in the other room, why not? But also that's
true. They did have 3 other kids. So
yeah, but also you got to remember, this is A Quiet Place is a post-apocalyptic, setting. And so,
actually, you know what? I may have just answered my own question. Did their youngest kid already get snatched up by the monsters when they conceived? Because I think it was 400 days after. So they might have been trying to fill that gap. I may have just answered my own question. They may have been trying to fill that gap in their lives by having that other kid, because, we're spoiling A Quiet Place, but if you haven't seen it by now and you listen to us, then you're, what are you doing with yourself? Because in that opening scene, when that first son gets snatched, then I feel like it's in the future that she's pregnant. So yeah, I may have just answered my own question about A Quiet Place. They may have been trying to kind of fill the grief by having another child. Yeah.
Although I do think it is worth highlighting that, it's the horrors of being pregnant in a hostile environment, because, what's worse than being pregnant with a bunch of monsters around.
Yeah. Just at the very baseline, just not having the necessities to ensure a safe birth. I mean, she was by herself in the bathtub, and also had the monsters that are attracted to sound around her. I mean, it's giving birth is already terrifying, so in that environment it's elevated. And I thought they handled that sequence absolutely terrifically. It's very nail biting. But also just remember that they're in a post-apocalyptic environment. So there's no doctors, there's no gynecologists, there's no one to prescribe birth control. I'm sure, and that environment, they probably ran out of condoms and resources. You know what I mean? So like the resources just aren't there. And that's terrifying. I mean, there's no way of tracking if it's healthy, it really is a miracle child, kind of, to put it weirdly. And in the second one, they continue it, because I mean, it's not only the giving birth, but it's maintaining this baby's life without attracting monsters that are attracted to sound. And babies are loud. I mean, I don't have one personally, but I've heard them through walls, with neighbors and stuff. And babies can be pretty fucking loud. So, I mean, kudos for them for taking on that challenge, because that's rough.
Yeah, no, I feel like a lot of pregnancy horror is predicated upon, just kind of like the environment and sort of surroundings of the pregnancy, like we were talking about before with like Rosemary's Baby, which I feel, kind of the more I reflect on it, it's just kind of a common trope that is a lot of times it isn't just the horror of the pregnancy or what was done with the pregnancy, but just kind of the surrounding reactions or like pressures from other people about the pregnancy, because they feel like there's kind of a stock character in these types of stories who just like whenever something is going weird or wrong with the pregnancy, like somebody else be like, no, it's fine, you need to have the baby.
Have you guys seen this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler that it applies to our topic, but you guys see Red Christmas?
No.
Okay. Red Christmas. And if you don't want it to be spoiled, fast forward, about 15 seconds. The whole thing with Red Christmas is that this family is being stalked by a killer. And the spoiler is that the killer is the mom is played by Dee Wallace. And the killer is her failed abortion from way back when. So it's it's a pretty messed up climax. It's a pretty messed up twist. And you're like, really? Yeah. Anyway, just made me think of that when we were talking about, have the baby.
Well, and continuing with that, there's also the Kindred, not the Kindred, but Kindred that came out in 2020 that starred Tamara Lawrence and Fiona Shaw, about a woman who finds out that she's pregnant and her husband dies shortly after. And so Fiona Shaw from Killing Eve and Fleabag is like the mother-in-law, and she forces Tamara Lawrence to kind of stay in the house because it's almost like they're wanting to replace the dead son with her kid. And it's just really weird and atmospheric. And you talk about a movie where, you have those characters that are like forcing this woman almost pretty much against her will the entire time to have this baby. Just that's a real creep fest that snuck up on me quite a bit.
Definitely. And I think perhaps one of the ultimate pregnancy horror movies is Alien.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel, that was, like Dan O'Bannon tapping into the fears of pregnancy, but for men, just the idea of it being invasive and forced upon it, like we were discussing before with the body horror, it's like applying a trope that usually is applied to someone else to someone else entirely.
Yeah.
And it's still considered one of the scariest movies of all time.
There's just the Alien franchise as a whole. I mean, Prometheus had that super gnarly scene where Naomi Rapace is, essentially aborting the xenomorph that's inside her in such a graphic and gnarly scene. I mean, yeah, the Alien franchise is very much so body horror, and I will fight anyone on that because so much of it, is about that violation of body of something entering you and forcing, not only consuming you, but killing you along in the process. And yeah, it definitely preys on a lot of those fears and terror. It's effective, and you're right. Putting it into men, it's a lesson learned for certain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like so many of these movies are predicated upon, the horrors of having bodily autonomy and agency violated. Like a lot of, I mean, how many horror movies involve, like somebody being forcibly impregnated by the devil, or like cults, or like I was thinking again, spoilers for a movie that's been out for a ridiculously long time, The House of the Devil. Just this, it's like the women being treated as an incubator instead of as a human being.
Yeah, or even one of our favorite films of last year, Titan.
Oh yes.
Titan, yeah.
I mean, if you're getting into pregnancy horror, what's more terrifying than being impregnated by a car?
I was going to say giving birth to a car.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you're right. I mean,
spoilers for Titan. We're spoiling everything today.
Apologies, folks. But at the end of the day, yeah, a lot of the basis of a lot of Gynaehorror, I believe, is the term, comes from that violation of, as Jacob said, autonomy, of having control over one's body of, that violation of something entering it, whether it be a xenomorph or Satan himself, and having to carry it to term, or just, having it consume you from the inside. And, every single one of these films that we've talked about has, holds up, and those fears are still here. And with the recent news, that's been going around, I think they're more prevalent than ever because, as Jay said at the beginning, we're three men talking about pregnancy and the horrors of it, something that we will probably never experience. And yet we're sharing our opinions on it. And so, there's a lot of that going on right now.
We're just three liberal grifters.
Yeah. Liberal grifters pushing our agenda.
We do read our reviews.
Yeah, we do. Very much so. Sometimes on repeat in our heads for days. But yeah, these fears are here because they're very real. These are very real. I know, as I said from the beginning, horror is something to process fear, to process real life in palatable ways, something that makes it not only comprehensible and palatable for yourself, but to have others experience it as well. And I think Gynaehorror is one of those important genres, just as any other genre where, marginalized groups share their real life experiences in a way for others to experience, so yeah, I say broaden your horizons, watch more of these films. They're out there and they're being made today. We just had the very great, False Positive come out last year on Hulu with Alana Glazer, which was very atmospheric, very creepy, very bonkers. And then you also have Anti-Birth with Natasha Lyonne, which is absolutely phenomenal. And it's not just her. It's also, you got Meg Tilly in there. Natasha Lyonne and Meg Tilly, you should already be sold on that movie. But yeah.
I think a lot of these movies also, another thing that's terrifying about them is they deal kind of with loss. And because if you look at even movies like The Omen, where they know this kid is a child of the devil. And one of the most powerful scenes in The Omen is the one where the dad knows he's got to kill this kid, but the kid is looking at him. No, daddy, no. He's turned from the son of the devil into his son again. And he can't do it. There's this movie from around the same time as Proxy called Absence. It's about this is a little on the nose with the loss thing, but basically it's about a woman who she has a pregnancy. She's carried to term, and she wakes up one morning and it's gone. She's just not pregnant anymore, and she has not had the kid or anything. And so it's one of those. How terrifying would that be to wake up all of a sudden you're just not pregnant? You know,
Midnight Mass covers that as well.
And I know that that sits into to Rosemary's baby as well, because this cult wants her baby, and she's like, no, you can't have my baby. He's like, oh no, he's got her father's eyes. He's got his father's eyes. But who's his father?
It's something that grew inside you and is very much so yours and a part of you, and it's immediately taken away. It's a very real thing that happens every day in this system as well. That sudden it's no longer yours, and Rosemary's Baby feeds into that fear of autonomy because it's not hers, it's her father's, or the baby's father. Yeah.
And how hard it is, even if that's the decision that's been made. And now, we're getting into our liberal grifting again, but, for the people who do choose adoption, that's basically what they're doing. They're doing the Rosemary's Baby thing.
Not everyone is also has the choice when it comes to adoption. Sometimes it is forced upon them due to our, systems in place. So, yeah. If you haven't gotten the point yet, we very much so believe that
if we haven't been liberal enough for you.
Yeah, if we haven't been liberal enough for you today, just remember everyone has the right to decide what to do with their body, especially women. And, there's no other takeaway from it from us or our discussions. And if you disagree with us, you're allowed to disagree, but that's where we stand. And back to we'll next week we'll return to just talking about comic book movies and horror movies and all that stuff.
I mean, if you want to argue it, I don't think any of the three of us really want to entertain that, but let's hear it. If you disagree with us, let us know. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and we're the Eye on Horror page is not the place to argue it. If you want to try to change our minds, good luck. But yeah, so I think this is a good place for us to call this an episode.
Even if you disagree with those sentiments, check out these movies. They're phenomenal movies.
Absolutely.
Created by amazing filmmakers all around. And you probably already have seen a few and didn't realize that that's what they were about. And so, please check out these movies.
Yep.
And let us know if we missed any of your favorite pregnancy movies that may even solidify the message, or if you know any that have the opposite message, let us know. We always love hearing about movies.
Yep, there's a wide world of horror out there.
Yes, there is. Our theme song is by Restless Spirits, so go give them some love. And our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go give him some love. You can find us at Eye on Horror, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere, or at iHorror.com. And, you should check out iHorror.com anyway, because they've got Kelly had a great interview with Bria Grant that you guys should all read.
Yeah.
That's our plug for iHorror at the end of this episode. Kelly from Murmurs in the Morgue interviewed Bria Grant. So check that one out.
And I just want to give a shout out to Chrissy Stockton from Creepy Catalog, who put together a phenomenal list of Gynaehorror films that we reviewed and did some helped with our research in this episode. So thank you, Chrissy. That was very helpful in preparation for this episode. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you. So we will see you in a couple weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
And I'm Jonathan Correia.
Keep your eye on horror.